she brings out her relationship with the mother and the mother who is trying to protect her, but the child thinks that she is restricting her. Then the mother is talking about what happened in Manipur, particularly all those mothers who go and protest naked. But what it does not bring, an important thing is somebody like Sharmila Ero, who had sacrificed her life for more than a decade fasting against it. And when she realized that tool of fasting is not helping anybody, neither the government is shaken by it. Then she got into politics that I will become a politician and then fight this out. But none of them voted. And even those mothers who had protested at that time, nothing, they didn't support. And somebody like Sharmila, who tried to change her method of protesting, nobody supported. And none of those recent happenings, I'm not talking about the immediate this year and last year's happening, but when Sharmila stood for the election and lost the deposit, we are not able to understand this is not bringing out. It's almost like more like a personal story side.
These are choices the filmmaker makes in terms of how much of politics. So this is not a story of Manipuri history of violence or conflict. It doesn't purport to be that. It is about a personal journey of her mother. So I think these are basically choices. And I think the context of conflict comes in as a backdrop. I mean, while sitting with Deepa, she mentioned that it wasn't so clear when she says here. The here was actually Nepal. So the Maoist, the civil war, the PLA, when she's talking about how the cadre had come home, she's also talking about the cadre in Manipur having to be fed and housed and so on. So I think the militancy in Manipur and Nepal, they form a thread in terms of what is the context of violence in which these women have been raised and were raised by mothers who might have felt worried about them and so on and so forth. But I take your point. I mean, there's so much about Manipuri politics that one can talk about. This was a very difficult film to make actually, because we started this project where these 6 films which you'll be seeing over the next 3 days were mentored and it emerged out of collective discussions on how might we depict violence, particularly sexual violence against women, in different ways without actually showing it, in any kind of explicit or very crude form. And this is one of the films, and we started in December 2019, and 3 months later the whole world was locked down because of COVID. And she did some of the shoots soon after the lockdowns were lifted. So her parents who live in the US, they couldn't come for like almost a year. So her whole idea of how she would do it changed, and some of it was on video call and so on. So all the films were very difficult because they were 2 to 3 years during COVID actually.
I just feel it's extraordinary. It takes a lot of courage to make a film on your own family. A lot of courage, a lot of negotiation in terms of, what is the family okay with about revealing, and because it's going to become public. So these kinds of films, which are personal stories, are actually much tougher than making films which are really not about, which are more general, not bringing it home, as it were. So in that sense, I really admire her wanting to do this. And this whole thing between mothers and daughters, and with 3 generations, and even what that means, trying to build bridges across 3 generations.
The few scenes about her mother saying, oh, are you going to show this? Everyone's going to laugh at me. My tummy is showing too much and that kind of thing. So you can also imagine that there's a lot which is not in here, which she decided not to put in after showing it to her family and her mother. Also different reactions from her mother and sister and father, and how, that's part of a process, and I think that's a process she chose to enter while making the film. So some people might document through writing and oral narratives. On film, it's a very different way of documenting. I mean, every expression, every tear, every laugh is out there for everyone to see. So yeah, absolutely, it's really courageous to put yourself in front and behind the camera.